Hello, beautiful people. Sorry, it's dark. I'll be in light soon. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. I want to talk about accountability. I'm going to hold somebody accountable. When you call for an ambulance, you expect to receive care. You expect to be treated like you're a person who needs help. Yesterday, when the ambulance came, they had the stretcher out in freezing rain. They came in, letting it get soaking wet and freezing cold. They could have brought it up to the patio or even into the house, but they didn't. Here's what they did. They came in and they saw me hardly able to breathe and partially paralyzed from cataplexy, a symptom of narcolepsy. But they didn't know what cataplexy was, and they didn't care that my partner was saying, she can't move, she's paralyzed, she has cataplexy. I had a wedge pillow behind me, so in order to try to help me up, she lowered my footrest and raised the chair to a seated position, forcing me to bend forward uncomfortably until he removed the pillow for me, because I couldn't move. She was annoyed, complaining the whole time about how she's the only one who seems to ever work and has to pick everybody up. It's only her. She's the only one who has to deal with this. She was rude, she was angry, and she wasn't listening to what I was saying. I was using what little breath I had to explain that I have numerous medications. I was trying to list the ones that were important because they're the ones that can make breathing difficult, that can aggravate heart and lung issues. I tried to list the conditions I had that mean I have heart and lung conditions. What she saw in her mind was another junkie ODing. So they decided to get some awful little chair. I tried to get into it, but it was difficult, and she hurt me putting me into that chair. She physically hurt me, dug her fingernails into my armpit. I was able to get into the chair a little bit. My legs were working, but they were wobbly. And then they very slowly brought me out in the cold rain to a soaking wet stretcher. We have a couple of small steps and some cracks in our walkway. Not anything serious. It's like any other walkway. There's little ridges where the patio just has a little break in it, like everybody does. Sidewalks have those little breaks. I tried to say, don't worry about a little bump here or there, I can take it. She told me to shut up. Stop talking. We don't need to listen to you. Let me talk to him. We need to communicate on how to move you. So I stopped talking. We got to the sidewalk and there was a pause, and I said, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be difficult. She said, shut up. I told you to stop talking. So I stopped talking. I didn't say another word to her. Not one word. They get me over to the stretcher, and they put me on it, and it's soaking wet. and freezing cold. Then they sit it up into an uncomfortable position. They get me into the back of the ambulance, and the gentleman, who seemed like a nice guy, but was very quiet, like he was taking orders from the big man, this evil woman who was treating me like just another junkie. I don't know why I always have to deal with these people. There were no sirens, there were no lights, there was nothing. Just a slow, casual drive to the emergency room. And a long wait while she complained to somebody at the counter, while they got my information. The gentleman in the back of the ambulance had actually taken most of my information, fortunately, so he helped the lady check me in. They wheel me back, and I get to spend 20 minutes listening to them talk about football, and not so subtly talk about me. Another one? Yep. Like the last one? Maybe not, but probably. Or wait, she said, no, not exactly, but probably, is what she said. I know who the last one she brought in was, because they were in the room next to mine, screaming, yelling, shouting profanities, throwing things, demanding drugs, demanding different drugs, and then threatening to kill herself. She eventually became so belligerent, they kicked her out of the emergency room. That's who she was comparing me to. And I hadn't said another word to her. 20 minutes after that, they wheel me into a room, talking about me over top of me with the nurse in not so coded, worded messages, basically calling me just another fucking OD addict. Yeah, I'm on some pretty heavy drugs. They're required for my serious medical conditions. When my partner said that I couldn't move because I had cataplexy, she sort of scoffed and said, "Okay, I'm going to need you to get up and move into the chair for me." She didn't care. She didn't know what cataplexy was. She didn't believe it existed. She thought I was being dramatic. Just another junkie. I then sat on those cold, wet blankets. They got me into a triage room and slid me on those cold, wet blankets onto the hospital bed. She then spent 40 minutes at the nurse's station, mocking me, teasing me, laughing, and mimicking the shaking of my hands that was due to the fact that I was freezing cold and soaking wet. Laughing. I heard my name, and somebody said, "She's looking right at us." And I said, "Yeah, I can hear you too. I know you're talking about me." I heard them say Elizabeth Joe. I could have been wrong. They might have said Elizabeth So, but they played it off. They said it was them teasing one of the doctors or one of the nurses there because her name was Elizabeth and her daughter-in-law was upstairs about to give birth, and they were teasing her that what her grandkids were going to call her. They said, "They can call me Elizabeth or they can call me Liz." I admitted and apologized if the conversation was really about her. And then I said, "That lady was horrible to me. She put me on cold, wet blankets, and I am freezing. They helped me get into a gown, and then they realized how bad the blankets were. My pants were soaking wet. They helped me out of those. And then they had me roll over so they could take the blankets out from underneath me. And the nurse was appalled, absolutely appalled at how cold and soaking wet they were that I had been laying on for about an hour of her mocking me. Look at her, she's shaking. That's what she did. In plain view of me. Within earshot. And she wasn't a quiet whisperer. She told them, just give her Narcan, I'm sure she'll be fine. What was really happening is I had a heart attack. Or very close to one. My resting heart rate is usually in the 70s. It can go as high as 90 if I'm anxious. I have anxiety disorders. I was over 130 when they brought me in. An hour and a half after I had taken a Valium. They put in an IV. They gave me Benadryl to help sort of calm me down some more. It calmed me down a little bit. I dozed off, for moments here and there. Even asleep on both medications, my resting heart rate was over 106. They gave me a bag of fluid, hoping that would maybe do the trick. 5 hours later, I was down to 89. Sometimes I'd jump up to like 97, but I was generally below 100. So they could release me and they didn't have to keep me. They did an EKG. I told them I had arrhythmia. I told them that my mother had had this issue and I didn't know what it was or what it was called. The EKG said that they couldn't rule out a heart attack. They took a drug test. They found my prescriptions. I spent 5 hours in the hospital yesterday. An hour of it being mocked and freezing cold and soaking wet. Because this woman refused to believe that I was anything but an addict. That's not somebody who should be driving an ambulance. That's not somebody who should be caring for anybody or anything. I'm going to make sure she never does again. I'm making a formal complaint. I'm asking that they fire her. If they don't, I'll probably sue the company. Because that's not acceptable. Not when I was having a heart attack.